Hey guys, it's Ryan, and this week we're going to be going through the Nomads reinforcement group, the Viperia Pursuit Froce. This is a pretty classic unit breakdown. I'll talk about these stat blocks, how I use them, / how I'd see them being used, and if it's worthwhile using them. This is the third in my reinforcement series where I covered Code Capital and Equippy Argent. So check the cards for those, and remember to like and subscribe for more. I even think the fireworks are still around. I do apologise for my voice today. I have to get the video out, and unfortunately I'm afflicted with whatever my daughter has given me from nursery. So with that, let's begin. I like rounders, as they remind me a lot of Securitates, but cooler, which is good because that's why I like Tunguska. This unit feels like a natural progression of like how you go from Line Kazakh to Frontovliks, you would go from Securitates to rounders. Now they aren't in Tunguska, but I feel like the comparison is worth making because I can see the design threads that are being made here. Stat-wise, it fits into the role as a premium light infantry with PS12, marksmanship, MSV1, biovisors, NCO and terrain total. This is bolt territory of super good 1 wound light troopers, as it is that NCO that is killer in reinforcement, which makes it honestly maybe some of the best in slot shooting we have. Profile wise, the boarding shotgun might not get used unless you really want that NCO, but we get tactical awareness elsewhere, so maybe not needed. The shock marksman rifle though might be a sleeper hit if you're lacking the SWC in Harris. The rounder can't form a Viperia team or count as pure, but in Harris with the Kokak and Mars Spider, they can do the whole starting with the specialist thing. Then your shock marksman rifle can make for an order efficient shooter that makes a lean, mean harassing machine. Marksmanship in NSV1 is a very solid and often a +6 swing against mimeticism, and even min-6 won't phase this unit. It's disgustingly nice. It only gets more efficient on the Red Fury with its burst 4 and marksmanship with burst 5 in the fire team. If you know you're going to go up against a lots of mimetism, then this might be your shooter. The only issue is that it's fairly squishy, but they might survive through Pano Doctrine. Finally is the hacker, who is really efficient with that combo of a hacking device and Trinity, which I think is a deference and things, so we're stealing a lot from Pano here, but I don't want to understate that this potentially saves a slot. You still want the killer hacking device for about the same cost you can get the Spectre or the Prowler for more, but there are reasons you might be using them elsewhere. I think you're probably going to see the rounders every now and then in a Harris or as a shooter, or the hacker maybe in larger fire teams, if you don't mind the lack of purity. You only get one, so do be mindful. Jelena got a small glow up with the reinforcement, and she's pretty decent these days. Now she has a multi-rifle and a breaker combi rifle profile as well, which both rock. Additionally, she gains tactical awareness, which makes her a nice mix between a sensor bot and a Securitate. X-Visors and triangulated fire does unfortunately not mix well here, in that it's a bit redundant, but if you start pumping out those shots against mimeticism in cover beyond 24 inches, then I guess triangulated fire might be worth it. Though the sensor plus X-Visor, which I've talked about on the blocker, means you can make really good use of that Whip 14 to knock out Camo alongside a Templar Zone. Or you could use something with MSV1. I think we'll see Jelena every now and then, and she is worth it. With tactical awareness, Whip 14 specialist, and a decent but not amazing gun, we have all the markings of a good secondary shooter and a good addition to a fire team. Honestly, consider her. Mars Spider's a water unit, maybe one of the best reinforcement units, and I don't think I'm being too hyperbolic. Good CC, great templates, good defenses, specialist on some profiles, can repair wounds and structures if needed, flash pulse, large templates with +1 burst, CC +1 burst, climbing plus, and all that good stuff for less than 25 points, and availability 5. I really should just skip to the end where I say we're going to see them in reinforcements. I really recommend looking at them. Fine, I'll give them a little breakdown just to give a little more context. For the points, you get a 6-2 move, CC 23, BS 11, Fizz 13, Whip 13, Arm 1, BTS 3, only 1 wound though. You get the 360 degree visor and gizmo kit on every profile, which is a little bit of bloat, and well, we have structure everywhere, so it's actually not the worst anyway. We also get that CC +1 burst innately with Martial Arts, level 1, which is fantastic. Profile wise, they also get a heavy flamethrower +1 burst, flash pulse, assault pistol and a DA CCW. That as a core is a really great unit, but the main difference is the specialism, either a paramedic or engineer, and either a Panzerfaust or grenades with +1 burst. No profile is particularly bad here, except maybe double grenades, just because you have a heavy flamethrower and an assault pistol for close encounters, so I'd maybe recommend the Panzerfaust for the non-specialists, and honestly, either specialists. The engineers can do classifieds easier, and paramedics are good for picking up your admittedly flimsy reinforcement group. With the availability 5, you can take 1 paramedic, 1 engineer, and 1 regular one just to run around and do things that need to be done after filling a fire team to taste. Like I said, you'll see a lot of these. Kulaks give me a warm, familiar feeling as I look at the profile. If you squint hard enough, are colourblind, and ignore the Eastern European name, well, it's a Pano unit. It's a BS-13 medium infantry, which is very familiar. Not unique to Pano, but familiar to Pano. Stat-wise, they're like CC-18, which is a bit of a waste. BS-13 with min-3 and BS a shock, making it a nice light infantry and warband clearer here. Phys 11, Whip 13 with some specialist options, Arm 2, BTS 3, and 1 wound with shock immunity. They have Religious Trooper and Terrain Total, so they can shuffle pretty quickly or take a position and not die if needed. We have a lot of profiles for the Kulaks, and they're certainly interesting. No visors, which is a little odd, but we have rounders, so that doesn't really matter. We have 2 hackers, both with the SMG and D charges, which is fine, to be honest. It seems Corvus Billy doesn't really want us shooting here, and we prefer the approach for cheap hackers, which I think is a bit of a waste of the BS-13 in the min-3. The Forward Observer and Chain of Command versions are both boarding shotgun, D charges, and specialists, which makes them nice, if expensive, 1-wound pieces. And they also grant Nomads, Chain of Command, which is nice, but I'm curious if this will actually see play. The last 2 profiles I think may see the most play. The heavy rocket launcher with a pulsar and a multi-pistol is the second cheapest profile, but costs a lot of SWC, but it's really nice. With min-3 BS attack shock on a pie dish template, I've talked about it in the breast guards, and I think it's good here too. It's going to shred light infantry corps that get too clumped up, and warbands and medium infantry aren't going to like either. Heavy rocket launchers are really nice and could be your guide to take pop shots at longer range or arrow as needed. For encounters of the close kind, you have the Combi Rifle +1 burst. It might be your go-to if you don't want to melee something. Burst 5 on 13's after cover within 16 inches is going to eke a wound through eventually, but like I said, this could be a solid Harris starter if you want to avoid running Mars Spider hordes. Mars Spider Paramedic, the heavy rocket launcher / the rounder, then maybe this guy or a hacker could make for a really action-packed, if expensive Harris. I think we'll see some Kulaks in reinforcements, but 1 or 2 rarely, just due to the cost of Mars Spiders. They're a solid toolbox unit that are absolutely worth considering if it's right for your meta. Prowler's got the Moblot glow up, and by that I mean they're exactly the same but with tactical awareness. Now, jokes aside, I do actually like them, as they're a very nice do-it-all reinforcement piece that help promote player choice by being really solid, and that's nice to see. They're CC-16, BS-12, Phys 11, Whip 14, Arm 2, and BTS-6. They have Immunity Shock, min-3, Specialist Operative, which combines so well with the Whip 14, Stealth, Tactical Awareness, and Terrain Total. That is just a fantastic profile. With Purity with the Viperia team, there's a good chance you'll be able to sneak a pure 4-man together to make a very deadly shooter, and we haven't even got to the profiles yet. A Harris of a Rounder Hacker, Mars Spider, and a Prowler is like a A-tier Harris without a doubt. Cannot believe I'm saying this about a Bakunin unit, but I love it. Anyway, its 4 profiles are lifted directly from its non-reinforcement version, and here I think the boarding shotgun isn't going to get much use unless you want like a solo piece to run up to a button. The killer hacking device might be nice since it's a bit cheaper. With the tactical awareness availability too, it might not be a waste. I can see squeezing this one in if you want to move and hack or move so your shooter can do damage a bit quicker. The Combi Rifle Light Flamethrower Adhesive Launcher is nice but expensive in the context of reinforcements, but it is a nice secondary shooter with templates. However, the final and in my opinion best profile is the Spitfire. Sure, it's only BS-12, but it's BS-12 min-3 with tactical awareness and a burst foregone, which at its core is plain good for Nomads. It's an innate specialist again, which means you can move and shoot or do a button as a soloist. And that's going to be a real pain to deal with in the reactive turn as it drags a fire team up the board to power itself up. Now, they are in competition with the Rounders, but since they have Marksmanship and NCO, it's a very close race, but I think the innate specialist just nudges it to the Prowlers, but I think it's a good choice we have here. I think we're absolutely going to see reinforcement Prowlers, as they do a little bit of everything with profiles costing about 30 odd points. That is exactly what you want them to do. Take them to lead a fire team or take them solo, either is fine. Raoul, or Fake Moon Knight, is a really nice addition to the reinforcement as it adds some additional melee power that Mars Spiders aren't fulfilling. It reminds me of Wokan and Shona from Ariadna and Panoceania respectively, linked in the cards, only in a good way of course. Why? Well, he's CC-22, BS-12, Phys 13, Whip 13, Arm 2, BTS 3 with 1 wound. This is one of those stat lines that's not exceptional, but every point gets used here thanks to him being min -6 with decent close combat weapons, MA2 with Natural Born Warrior, so that's Phys 13 and CC 22, quickly becomes very good. Stealth and Spec Ops means that Whip 13 gets some good use, and that Arm 2 BTS 3 sure up that NWI, especially without shock immunity. Profiles are all pretty close, so it's a bit of a choice. They all get templates, drop bears, which are thrown at 13s before range. I think this is going to depend on how much you're going to use Spectre. If linked, I think the multi-rifle is fine to act as a secondary shooter and melee defense, but a Mars Spouter and a Prowler does it better. If you're here to spring forward and kill stuff, maybe the boarding shotgun or multi-rifle for that super junk. Just check your remaining points left. Just before I recommend him, I feel like you should touch on the sheer killiness with that EM CCW and the DA CCW, which I think is a little redundant, but these two are great damage 14 DA based CCWs. With Natural Born Warrior Martial Arts 2, you're gonna roll most targets. I think the EM CCW is better, as would most, unless your opponent has like BTS 9 and Arm 3 or something, as it also isolates and immobilizes attackable unit type. So any overextended tag or heavy infantry will die near Raoul. In general, I think we'll see him when you need some melee finesse beyond the Mars Spiders. He is an expensive but a very good deliberate choice. Lizards are the only real main battle tag in reinforcements and are pretty good, shockingly enough. She is lacking the multi-heavy machine gun, but they've got extra stuff to make it a bit more interesting, such as BS Attack Shock and EMC Hacker -3. Besides that, it's still a pretty bog standard tag with BS 14, Whip 13, Arm 8, BTS 6 and 3 structure. And besides the Vostok, it is the only unit with more than one true wound. It is of course Silhouette 7 with tactical awareness +1 damage, which is all very normal main battle tag stuff. Much like the Squallow, dropping a tag in reinforcement is an immediate if known game changer and will do damage, especially since it's a gunfighter and a specialist with its pilot. With its high BS and armor, you're going to struggle to prevent the Lizard from being able to just go on the move. Fortunately, its order pool is tight and probably limited to about 5 total, including tactical awareness, so when you choose the Lizard, remember that. Profile wise, it's got two choices. It's the Spitfire, which is not great at armor busting, but in Nomads you have guided missile and warbands for that, although with reinforcements SWC is tight. For the same SWC in cost, weirdly you get the choice of either a heavy flamethrower or grenade launcher with your Spitfire, which kind of makes no sense on a pricing point, and to be honest, I'm not massively sure which is better. Both offer something useful. Like in the Pano video, again link in the cards, I say that the grenade launcher can sweep Morans or something giving you a hard time off the board, but you have 5 orders on 9s to do any damage with the grenade launcher. I think honestly I'd rather prefer the heavy flamethrower and just protect myself from warbands. Regardless, I think the Lizard is a good idea for Nomad reinforcements if you're not bringing a tag in the main list, or maybe if you are bringing one in the main list. I think a more conventional fireteam based reinforcement section may get more use, but I think you have to consider the Lizard. Lunk Hods are the first of the Sputniks, and I'm not really sure if they're the worst ones, but it's definitely close. It's not awful as a REM goes with 6-4 movement, CC 14, BS 12, Phys 10, Whip 13, Arm 3 and BTS 6 with Structure 1. I think awful REMs go to the Tractor Mules. The Lunk Hod also rocks a Repeater, Climbing Plus and the usual assortment of drone skills. To be frank, it reminds me of a medium infantry and not in a flattering way. Profiles are basically identical with the heavy shotgun decharges and shock mines, which is arguably a downgrade from the version with drop bears with mine layer. The two differences in the profile, as you can see, is the heavy flamethrower and the acrylic cannon, and to be honest, I think it's the acrylic cannon I'm more interested in. It grants you a positive range band out to 16 inches, as I don't think heavy flamethrower is needed with that repeater, and damage 15 small templates or AP with a +6 within 8 inches. The other problem I feel like is that it could have been a fantastic fireteam defender as Rempressed with good engineers in the faction. It would be hard to put down, but he's solo, and a Lunk Hod solo has the same problems in reinforcement as it does in the normal game. It doesn't compare favourably to a conventional warband or even the other Sputniks, or hell, even Panoshianine arm bots. As you can tell from my general tone, sickness aside, I'm not massively impressed with this unit. If it had been dogged, it could have been a solid assault piece, but right now, arguably a Stemplar does that job better by virtue of size and cost. With Arm 3 and BTS 6, relying on armour to live is not enough with only a heavy shotgun for 25 points. You simply have better options. Speaking of good bots, the Stemplar is here, and in the brief overlap between Tachimoto and reinforcements, this was silly good. Now it's just plain good. A couple of panel gripes come Nomad positive points. You get access to availability to 2 13-point models, which is very nice and very cheeky. You can optionally pay the points for sensor, which is nice to have, but entirely optional. Now, literally, you get climbing plus, as this is Nomad, and mobility is their thing. Finally, you get the BS attack +1 burst, which I don't think is worth the 6 points, but it's certainly an option to consider. I'm not sure what to say other than it's a sensor bot that can be cheaper and has climbing plus. Take the 13.1 to maybe replace some lost midfield repeaters or cheapen a fire team. I think we'll probably see these every now and then, and so maybe consider that third remote pack from Nomads. The Cyclone is the second best Sputnik, although I think it loses something in reinforcement. First, let's talk about the stats to give it some context. It's the same as the Lunkhold, except it's got a 360-degree visor and an X visor, which is not bad, but it loses the picture, which I understand, but it brings it down a notch. Without the repeater, the X visor isn't exactly doing much because it has a chain rifle, lacks a pistol, it does have a Spitfire, so that extends the zeros out to 32 inches, and it removes the -3 range band from the 8 inches from the Fuhrback, which is neat, but I don't particularly think worth the points. Same with the 360-degree visor, but that's kind of an argument. I mean, I have praised the X visor Spitfire combo before, and if you combo it with marksmanship, it gets pretty decent, but to be fair, that's true for the Fuhrback as well. Really, despite being a smidge, and I honestly hate myself for saying this, suboptimal, I think the Cyclone does actually have a place in reinforcements. Reinforcement Nomads are not a gun-focused faction. Maybe outside some multi-marksman rifles and some Panzerfaust, we really have no ranged AP here, let alone AP with lots of dice. So the Fuhrback is a really nice choice, as you can probably run this and still get 3 other orders, more with Prowlers, Rounders and Kovac. It's an expensive choice, but one that may be worth considering if you're running a Vostok or tag list in your main section, since that support can be transferred over very easily. The Vostok is the big daddy Sputnik. Why did I say that? And is again basically the same, but it's actually good. With 2 structure, min-6, and immunity AP, it's fantastic. As mentioned with the Lizard, this is our second tripper with 2 true wounds or more, and it's a good tripper. Odds are if you're watching this, you're probably a Nomad player, so I won't explain why the Vostok is good, but in the same way that the Sputniks are medium infantry, this guy is a premium heavy infantry, but as a remote. It's a very good unit, and its place within reinforcements is interesting. For 44 points wildcarding, it is very easy to slot in Harris, but that will basically be it. The min-6 immunity AP and 2 wounds with a Mark 12 with damage 16 is going to be your main hammer to break through hard pieces, other than the Lizard. No one really wants to fight a Vostok, it's just a pain. You could hack it, but then it has a repeater, so you're likely to get hacked. It's basically always arm 6, but it's fat, so you can kind of get stuck behind it and shot in the back. But with the stats in mind, you're gonna need a good gun to take it down, and few armies will have that. Harness this with 2 Mars Spiders and just climbing plus anywhere. Overall, I think we'll see them rarely, just because of the price. I don't think you'll regret taking one unless you really needed Burst 5. Like I said, they're expensive, but they're an absolute arseache to bring down. Zonbots I think are a little pointless. They only attach to the linkable engineers, who will probably drop exactly where they needed, so you don't need a small fast thing to get there because you're already fast and agile enough to do its job. I do think there is like one usage in Nomads just because Mars Spiders are Whip 13 over the Whip 12 blades, and Nomads have far more structure units available to take advantage of this. The main reason I think this could be quite cheeky is if you give the Mars Spider yet another +1 burst in melee, which could be hilariously deadly. Overall, we might see zone bots, but I mean, I probably won't run them. To be frank, I don't usually rate Nomad skirmishers well, barring the ones from Corregidor, but the Spectre is looking a lot better these days. In reinforcements, they are pretty nice solo pieces to do jobs that need to be done. With CC 13, BS 12, Fizz 12, Whip 14, Arm 1, BTS 3 with 1 wound, it's not a bad profile that gets elevated with its BS attack +1 damage, min-6, stealth and terrain total. This all combos really nicely into making the shotgun and multi-marksman rifle very nice. With good shooting out to 24 inches, that is a very nice secondary shooter piece for reinforcements. It's also pseudo heavy shotgun, makes harder to retaliate against. Other profiles do make use of the Whip 14 15 with 2 hackers and a forward observer. Respectfully cheap and nice at 22 points for them. Shame they lack surprise attack to make that killer hacking device vicious. They are not named Nomad hackers, but what they are is a very good suitable replacement hacker if or when your opponent thinks they've finally defanged your list. To be honest, I like Spectres. They are the only Nomad skirmisher I've looked at and gone, this isn't busted cheap or irregular. Neat. In reinforcements, I think we'll see these sometimes. They're a dedicated soloist who is squishy, but can either shoot well enough or be a nice specialist or hacker to get objectives done or hobble your opponent. Definitely consider this for 20 odd points. I don't consider myself fully a Nomad player. My Tunguska is being painted as we speak, but it's not hard to get a good read on the design of these reinforcements. I am going to be safe and say I do think these are thoroughly Nomads. They're incredibly effective units, good hacking devices, sneakily good close combat, and absolutely no durability or major shooting prowess. I mostly joke as I say that last bit, but all the troopers read as Nomads. Mars Spiders and Kulaks are obviously Bakunin and Corregidor. Rounders are just as Tunguskan as Kovac, Raoul, and Prowlers and Spectres, who are just awesome Nomad profiles. Overall, I think Nomad players are pretty happy with reinforcements, although I think this SWC costs is killing them. So that was my video on the Nomad reinforcement group. Did I cover them well? Let me know in the comments below. And remember to like and subscribe for more. And as always, thank you so much for watching.